there, it's Cassie. Welcome back for another Trinity Stamps video. Today we're going to be making a slimline card using the Adore stamp set. And I'm super excited to share this with you because I love the stamp set. It's big, it's bold, and it's beautiful. So we're going to go ahead and do some ink blending, and I have this sped up about 4 times. But I'm using some Bristle smooth cardstock that I have trimmed down to 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start doing my blending. I've got my blender buddies and I've got Distress inks. Now if you wanted a different kind of more creamy look, you could go with the Distress oxides, but I chose Distress inks. That first color that I used was Squeeze Lemonade, and then the second color that I brought in was Dried Marigold. And I chose to use the Bristle Smooth because it seems like the colors kind of set on top of the cardstock for just a little bit, and it gives you time to blend. And yeah, I always end up with a really beautiful blend. The next color that I brought in was Abandoned Coral, and now we're on Seedless Preserves. And you'll see that I'm just kind of going back and forth until I get the blend that I want. And this final color is the Black Soot color. I thought that that would be nice and dramatic. And with what I plan to do as far as my stamping goes, it's going to really bring in that black soot here in a bit. I did kind of blend that on the edges just to add a little bit of drama on the edges as well. I'm going to do some splatter here. I'm using some gold sheer shimmer spritz, but Trinity Stamps has the glitter and gold Trinity palette, and it's handmade watercolors, and I have those on the way. I'm so excited to get those, but I don't have those yet, so this is what I'm using. But when I do get the glitter and gold Trinity palette, I'll be sure to use it in another video very soon. All right, so I'm going to heat set that, try and get that dry. And then to test it out, which you always want to do, because I plan to do some embossing, is I'm going to use my magic powder bag over the top. And I was really generous with that. And then I took my Nuvo sweeper and just kind of pushed that away. Then I tested it with the embossing powder that I plan to use. And as you could see, it did stick to some of that splatter. So that tells me it's not quite dry yet. So I'm going to bring in my heat gun again, just making sure that everything is good and dry. And then I'll test it one more time. And I'm actually quite happy with how that is going. So we're going to put this into our Misty, and then I'm going to pull out the stamp, and I love it. Like I said, this is a big, bold, beautiful stamp. It will cover the front of an A2, but I wanted to use it on a slimline, so I'm going to not only use those sentiments but a few other pieces in this set. I used my magic powder bag again, swept away any of that excess, and then we're going to ink this up using some Ink on 3 Juicy Embossing ink. This is my first time using it, but I really, really like this embossing ink. It is, well, nice and juicy, and I didn't have any issues with it stamping out. So I'm going to close the door of the Misty, stamp that down, pull that away, and then I'm going to pull in like a gold sparkle embossing powder that I have, and I'll just cover that with that gold sparkle, and then tap that excess oil. You'll see that I do have a little bit of an issue down there by the E on Adore, but I just kept doing a little bit of tapping, kind of blew that away, and what was left over was mostly glitter. So then I'm going to heat set that till that is smooth and melted, keeping it off of my Misty. I don't want to heat that over the top of my Misty. I'm not sure what that would do, but I don't want to test it. But I love watching embossing powder melt, and I love how this stuff has some sparkle to it. All right, now we're going to move on to the next spot, or next part, which would be adding the manger underneath. And then I'll do the same process, magic powder bag, sweep away any excess, ink up my stamp using the Juicy Embossing ink. And then I'll stamp that down, and then I'll cover that with a black sparkle embossing powder that I have. Hit away any of the excess with my dry paintbrush, and then once again heat that till that is smooth and melted. And you'll be able to tell, you can just watch it in the light go from like a matte finish to more of a shiny finish. And then our final piece would be to bring in the star for the top. So I'm trying to make this look a little bit like a tree. There are a lot of stars in this stamp set, so you could go crazy putting stars, but I'm just going to use the one since I did a bunch of sparkle on the background. And then we'll go through that same process. We're going to go ahead and ink that up with our Juicy Embossing ink. And then I'm going to bring in one more sparkle embossing powder. This is the Silver Sparkle. Cover that. And now we've hit that whole gamut. I'll move away any of the excess powder so it doesn't stick to where I don't want it to. And then I'll heat set that till that is smooth and melted. And now we're going to bring in our base, which is some more actually of that Bristle smooth cardstock that I cut down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. And I'm scoring it at 3.5 inches. So that's going to fit my base really nicely. And then I brought in my Teflon tools from Trinity. Love those. And then to attach this down, I'm going to just use some liquid glue. And there was a little bit of warping simply because I used so much heat on this paper, but the liquid glue just helps it to stay put exactly where it's supposed to. You could do some decorating on the inside. I'm not sure why I didn't, but you could. And then this is actually going to finish off this card. I do love how this turned out. That stamp set has quickly become one of my favorites, and I feel like I could really mass produce a lot of great Christmas cards using that set. You wouldn't have to go to all the extent that I did, but that was a super easy card. So if you liked this video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Be sure to check out the rest of what we have going on over at the Trinity Stamps Facebook page, blog, and Instagram. And as always, I will see you very soon in another video. Bye, everybody.